galvanize the community around redistricting and to get out the vote. We must make sure, as we complete this process, that we have people-driven, fair maps. Because when we do that, we will have fairness and political equity among people of color. Now, I was particularly taken by the remarks of Sarah Cozy and her background. Let me applaud you. Yes, we are free. We have a lot of privileges, but we have so much work to do. And I know that you know that because you've been on it a long time. So today, I will ask our tech guru to get us started with the first slide. We're going to be addressing what is redistricting. As we move with redistricting, let me tell you, our rights are under attack. That's nothing that we need to be negotiating about. We must be busy, we must remain vigilant, and we must remain at the table, not standing, but we must have a seat. Redistricting occurs every 10 years and it follows the census. As you know, we did the census for 2020. We were somewhat behind because of the devastation of COVID-19 and the impact it had on our state and this nation. But redistricting happens once a decade, every 10 years. Now ask yourself, and you don't have to respond, in 10 years, in 2031, what is your age? What do you plan to do? Will you be retired? Will you be married? Many of us are already there. Will you have someone entering college? There are so many factors that will be played out over the next 10 years. Of course, we have no real understanding of the future because we don't hold it, but we do have power that has been given to us to ensure what we do, we leave it better than we find. At this point, redistricting will encompass this entire nation. But today, particularly, we're going to focus on Louisiana. So redistricting happens, as I said, because of the census. Our data that has been provided for the census that will be driving redistricting, at this point, Louisiana has 4,460,811 people. That is about a 2.74 increase. They anticipate that when the numbers are complete, we'll be around 4,657,000. Growth. That's a good thing because there is a myth that many are moving from Louisiana. But let me tell you, many are remaining and many are coming to Louisiana. So any growth protects what we currently have. And with that said, redistricting will take care of the lines for every elected official. That can be your school board, your city council, police, jury, all of the United States representatives, and we have 6 that we will continue to have. The Senate, we have 105 members of the Louisiana Senate, 39 senators, and you have your Supreme Court. You even have your Public Service Commission. You have your Bessie Board. All of these individuals will be redistricted this year when there is a special session held, particularly in 2022. I say this to say redistricting is going to be one of the most contentious areas of political that we will observe that we have not seen. And it's going to be like that because of the partisan toxic climate that we're experiencing. Delta Sigma Theta is a nonpartisan organization, but we do believe in electing people who will fairly and justly represent our values, characters, needs, and educational and all the health things that will come that we will need. This is why redistricting is critical. This is why redistricting is a non-negotiable for people of color. Moving to the next slide. In redistricting, why does redistricting matter? There are three basic redistricting principles, and it tells you really why it's important. Redistricting affects political power. It determines which party controls Congress. What are we experiencing now? Pushback, because there is a party who has a fixed mindset. We need a party with a growth mindset. If you have been keeping up with the national news, you know that we have not been able to move the needle with any bills that have come forth. That is because of the political party power. And that is why it is so important that we be very vigilant as we move forward. Now, the three basic principles, and many of you have seen some of these slides, but because it's redistricting and it starts with the prefix re, it serves us well to do it again and again until we can have this information absorbed so that we can share with the general public so that they can amplify these principles. So you have contiguity. Every district has remained connected. That means that the borders should touch. It should not be pulled out from different places, jumping all over. But when you look at your second congressional United States representative, you know, it runs from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. And you have to ask yourself, how was that district drawn? Then you have compactness, few exceptions there. Districts should have been drawn extremely odd shapes. And that's what you're seeing, particularly in the second congressional. And we speak to the second congressional because that is the only district that is represented by people of color. The other 5 United States congressional districts are all represented by the Caucasian race. Communities of interest. When we look at redistricting, that happens every 10 years, we certainly want to remain aligned with the people who have the values and share the same concerns that we do. Because that is the only way you can determine who can best serve you. If you are electing politicians that you only see every 4 years and you never see them again, unless they're on a television news program or there's something going on, they never come back to your neighborhood until it's time for you to cast a vote, then you know that is not a person that is representing your community of interest. Why is redistricting so important? Redistricting is so important because it empowers what our democracy is. It helps us defend what our democracy should be. And it helps protect we, the people, to ensure that there is a level playing field so that we can move forward together. Now, when we look at the next slide, this will be a driving force for the next 10 years. And you have to ask, who is disproportionately impacted in these areas? When you drive through your neighborhoods and look at your schools, when there's a person who has a serious condition and need health care, when you look at the fatality rate of babies born to African-American mothers, when you hit the potholes on your road or your bridge is closed and there's a detour that takes you an hour out of the way, when you look at the economic opportunities, and we have fought our Louisiana legislators for years for equal pay and to move us to a livable wage of $15 an hour. Think of your groceries, but think of those individuals who are only making $7.25 and $8. How do they in this world where the dollar is valued less each day and the cost of living has escalated. This is why redistricting is important. And this is how it's affecting our communities of color. Louisiana is more diverse than ever before, and much of that 2.3% that I mentioned based on the numbers gathered from the census is indicating the diversity of this state. Now, redistricting is the fair shot for communities of color to elect candidates who represent their views, who will fight for their concerns, or who can ensure we're not excluded from the table. Now, if we don't work in this effort around, we will continue to receive less funding than we actually need in order to have the quality of life that we so deserve as other communities, and to ensure that our children have that fair and equitable playing field as they move forward in the educational systems. Consequently, redistricting is bearing on what legislators must tackle, and they don't want to make any changes. They are very resistant to change, but we know as a people, change must come and change will come. Now, when you look at all the pieces, the next is who gets to draw the lines. So moving to the next segment of the slide. I mentioned we've had our census day. And it came at a critical time when we were faced with COVID-19, and there were many that were not counted, but thank God he gave us enough to increase the percentage and maintain what we have. In Louisiana, redistricting has the sole authority of our legislators. That 105 representatives I mentioned, the 39 senators that I mentioned. It is called the House and Senate Governmental Affairs Committee. And the list of people available, I'm sure that Sarah Lewis can share that and get it out to you. But they are the ones who are empowered to draw the lines based on the law. Now, these people are drawing lines that impact them because they are the elected officials. So anybody knows if you have an interest, you're going to work on your behalf. And that's why we have a lot of things that are not changing, because many of those individuals who we have elected have their own personal agendas, and they don't necessarily align with some things that we need, desire, and are critical to the success of the state. Now, as we move into what goes into the lines, there is in your chat, I hope that they have dropped a link that directly takes you to the House of Governmental Affairs Committee's page. And they give you an outline of how they go through the process of redistricting, how it is established. There are state laws, there are particular criteria. I won't go through every criteria this morning because of time, but I do want you to know and keep in mind that in 1975, Congress enacted a law, 94-171, which allows states to provide census with physical description. Bottom line, it means it represents one person for every vote. And that's how the census delineates our representation. This data makes it easier for states to comply with one person, one vote. So when you hear 94171. Nothing to do with special education. This is redistricting, and it protects us and has been in place by our Congress since 1975. It's a good procedural protection. Redistricting has a number of criteria. And then when you get on that site, you will see extensively the things that are mentioned, but I'm going to mention a few. Our plans must and shall comply with the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment and the 15th Amendment of the United States. It must also support the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 as amended. And I stress as amended because you know there were some changes to the Voting Rights Act that happened in Congress recently. They also use what we call VTDs. You will see a lot of acronyms that you're not familiar with. VTDs are voting tabulation districts. These kind of filter into our precincts. There are constant reminder of boundaries where maps cannot overlap certain boundaries for procedural safeguard to ensure that we maintain an equal number of people. There has to be an equal number of people with a deviation of 5%. I want you to also keep in mind that when you are looking at redistricting, as I said, if you pull up that particular link when you get an opportunity after this webinar, there are other factors that are in place. The House and Senate put a resolution in place this summer to help with the criteria. And there were several committee members, Ross, the police, served on that, and others to ensure there was some minimal procedure safeguard so we would not just have this fallout with all the things that come, particularly gerrymandering. Gerrymandering has been one of the biggest pitfalls for the states in the South, particularly Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama. Now, what is gerrymandering? Gerrymandering is simply when the lines are drawn for a certain particular party. And that happened after the 2011 census count that we had in 2010. You saw this big pushback. I think it was a backlash to the election of President Obama. And it was an opportunity for them to go and put in mechanisms that would technically dilute and take the voting power from people of color. And when that happened, you see in your United States Senate and House, the big pushback, the many seats that we've lost, and the reason we cannot move the needle forward in many of the areas of bills that directly impact us is because we do not have that political power. Gerrymandering, it happens too often. The courts do have things in place, but it is a battle. Any attorney will tell you, you have to have the specificity from A to Z to ensure that your case is solid, that will prove there has been gerrymandering as it relates to what you are bringing forward in a particular district. Now, in gerrymandering, you will usually find a couple of things happening. Packing. This is when districts are drawn to concentrate members of a party in a single district, allowing that party to win. That may be a Republican district, maybe a Democratic district. You very rarely see that in an independent district. Cracking would be another factor of gerrymandering. When a group is split up among multiple districts to dilute their voting power. That has traditionally happened in the state of Louisiana. As I stressed earlier, we have 6 United States congressional districts. In the state, we only have 1 minority representing one of those districts, and that is down here in the 2nd Congressional, where Representative Troy Carter was recently elected to serve. So gerrymandering is something that we will have to fight. It's something that we will have to be vigilant about. It is something that we will have to have dialogue with our partners, such as the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, others who are on deck with us who want to ensure that we don't move backwards, but we move forward in our mindset to rid ourselves of some of this gerrymandering. As I said, there are laws in place, but the greatest law that we can put in place as a sorority, as stakeholders on this call, is to call your senators, Cassidy and Kennedy, and ask them to support H.R. 1. That is for the people. That is to restore some of these voting tactics that they have put in place. This is to ensure that gerrymandering would not happen. This particular bill has been passed in the United States Congress, but it is sitting and has been sitting on the desk of Mitch McConnell, who will not move it forward. We must pass for the People Act. And it is important that as a sisterhood and as a community, we reach out and contact and let them know this needs to happen. And we need to move this needle before December 31st. Because after that point, redistricting provides another avenue. Candidates will begin to determine who is going to run. And as many of you know, Kennedy will be up for re-election midterm 2022. I'm not sure who's running against him, but I certainly hope someone is going to run and give him a fight to ensure whether he wins or loses, that he is unnoticed, that the things that he has done to represent Louisiana has not been in Louisiana style. Now, we can do that, but it's going to take power. It's going to take us working together, and it's going to take us united. Now, in redistricting, there are many deadlines. Because of the census, and we can move to the next slide. Because of the census, we are kind of in a draft mode. And I can say a draft mode because what should have happened, redistricting should have been completed this spring. They should have really had a summer session, especially just for redistricting. And if they had had that, then we would have already knew what would be taking place. So we're in the process of drafting maps. We're in the process of looking where we need to be. And this is critical. How do we ensure we know the deadlines? It's out there, very simple. We're going to move to the next slide. And I'm going to explain this a little bit more. The legislators are in charge of the maps. Remember that. But we, the people, have the input of how the maps happen. When the maps go in, they can approve them. If they approve them, they can move to Governor John Bel Edwards' desk. And if he finds that there has been gerrymandering, if there has been a lot of packing, if there has been things that are not in the interest of people of this state that can move us politically forward with power that is inclusive for all communities, particularly people of colors, he has the authority to veto. And he has demonstrated that he will veto things that he does not think are in the best interest. But even if he vetoes it, it will probably become very litigious and end up in the court system. And that's why we're saying before they actually get in to start drawing these maps, we need to be amplifying our voices as to what needs to be done to ensure there are people-powered fair maps. Next slide. So, how can we make our voices heard in redistricting? Who is responsible? You and me. We are the volunteers, and volunteers are the backbone of this democracy. Any movement that has gone forth, you knew volunteers were the backbone, and we got out and got the work done. In 2008, there was a chant that went from every corner of this nation, and that chant was, yes, we can. Even babies were saying, yes, we can. And they were saying it because the person we elected, the 44th president, Mr. Barack Obama, our commander-in-chief, had been on the side in Chicago with a local movement. And that local movement propelled him to the highest office of the free land. I tell you today, it's the local, it's us that can move the needle, move it in the direction that it needs to go so that we can protect our rights as a people. Now, for 108 years, Delta Sigma Theta has been at the forefront of advocacy. So we are not at any point ready to turn and go back the other way. I ask you as volunteers today, all of us, start your plans. Like today, Baton Rouge Sigma is hosting this webinar. This information needs to go everywhere. Ask your people, the elected folks that you know, and you know someone, you know a school board member, you know a city council, ask them what is going on with redistricting. If they cannot give you a solid answer as to where we are in redistricting, because every elected official lines will be drawn. The school board, city council, police jury, they have the local authority to redraw their own lines. They're not under the legislator authority. Ask some people what is happening with redistricting. And if they can't give you a message that there has to be some change, something is wrong. Look at your next slide. Those local governments, hit them today. You know them. Look at the next slide. This is where the rubber meets the road. These legislators and committee members have scheduled meetings throughout the entire state of Louisiana. These are face-to-face. We're pushing at this point to ask them to give us a virtual modality in light of Hurricane Ida, and many of these meetings in some district, people will have to drive over an hour to get there. It's only right that you provide some virtual venue for a matter that is this important. You see, the first meetings are coming up fairly quickly, but I want you to look and find November 16th, because many of you live in the Baton Rouge area. There is a meeting that's going to be at Southern University in the Cotillion Ballroom. I hope it's big enough to hold the 300 plus Baton Rouge Sigma members, because I know you're going to be there. We must be there because they're going to bring these meetings around, but we're pushing for a virtual modality also. Be there. And when you talk with your school board members, all these elected officials, if they're not aware of what's going on, you need to tell them. You need to tell them where to be, what time. I'm not sure how big the Cotillion Ballroom is, but we have to take an active part. That is what we will have to do, because we are the volunteers. We will be the ones who determine what we look like in 10 years. And it's important. As someone said at the opening, this will impact us for generations to come. Make no doubt about it. This is one of the most critical redistricting cycles that we have ever participated in, because there have been some impact with the voter registration laws. Next slide. Now, I'm not sure if I've answered everything about redistricting, but because of the time, I will take a few questions if there are some in the chat, and then we'll move very quickly into the amendments.
I've not
Is there anything?
I've not received any messages on the redistricting section.
Okay, either I did a very wonderful job or I did a very poor job and confused you more.
I think it was thorough, convincing, and clear.
Okay, again, I'm going to say that those links that you need to access are in the chat. So please, ma'am, please, sir, get that information and use it. Now, very quickly, because we want to get you out within an hour, and I certainly want to give it back to the program facilitators who will be closing us out. Let's look at this PAR guide. There is a link also in your chat that will support. We have 4 constitutional amendments on the ballot. If we can move to the next slide. And if you could just make that as large as you can, because I know for some it may be very difficult to see. And if you can, thank you. Great, great. As I said, there are 4 constitutional amendments. When you, and if you have to go back to the way it was, that would be fine. And I'll just try and read some of it. As you know, the October 9th election was moved due to Hurricane Ida. But keep in mind, when we had the impact of COVID-19, we asked for the same consideration to ensure that voters would have time to recover. We had to take a lawsuit to make those adjustments with our Secretary of State, Cal Audron. Keep that name in mind, Cal Audron, because he will be coming up again, I'm sure, in another election. However, it has been moved, which is a good thing, because I think we did not have enough knowledge around these amendments to make a good, educated decision. Anywhere you research, you will find these amendments under October 9th. Even though the election is the 13th of November, there are 4. These amendments, the first one deals with sales tax streamlining. And what I want you to take away from this amendment, what these legislators put together, you really can't understand. It takes an attorney to interpret that. And I think I saw an attorney on this call. These constitutional amendments are some of the most written in a manner that the common average person, and I'm educated, have a very hard time deciphering exactly how they're going to impact us. So for the First Amendment, a vote for that amendment would be one single authority. That means one single body, kind of like the legislators. A vote against that amendment would continue to leave it like it is. So what you need to do is ask your mayor of the city, or whatever city you live in, do they support moving to a consolidated system that takes control of the local government collecting their taxes? Would Baton Rouge support that and give that authority to a commission that you won't have control over, possibly who is appointed, even though they say it's going to be very inclusive? That's the decision on Amendment 1. Lots of information there. Read it, share it, email it. We have time to make a difference if it needs to be a vote yes or a vote no. I cannot tell you how to vote. That's an independent process. We don't buy votes. We support the process. We provide the information and we let every individual make a decision. For Amendment 2, do you support an amendment to lower maximal allowable rate of income tax? and to authorize, and I think the key word here, to authorize the legislator. These are the people who will not even give us a COLA for retired teachers. They will not give us a livable wage. They do not recognize equal pay. They are people who have a lot of difficulty moving us forward. So do you want to give that authority to them? That's for the first one. The second amendment is about tax reform. Yes, we need tax reform. I'm just not sure going about it this way is in our best interest. So ask when you're not sure. A vote for, they say, would lower the income tax and maximize more for the individual. I'm, as a state retired educator, and many of you are, we don't pay state taxes. So they have to give me more explanation, because at this point, I consider my taxes lower because I don't pay state taxes out of my retirement. I pay federal. And this will have some involvement with federal taxes. A vote against would leave the Constitution as it is. And remember, the Constitution, once you change it, it is difficult to go back and get what you had. The third amendment, do you support an amendment to allow levy districts that were created after January 6th, and before October 2021? Do you support them giving you an increased levy? If you do, then you want this amendment to change. If not, you need to go back and ask those levy board members, what are they currently doing? We still have tremendous flooding. There are many neighborhoods can tell you, where is the gap? With all the money that has been expended around securing levels and keeping floodwaters out, we're still experiencing that, and use more so in the South. The Fourth Amendment asks you clearly, tax authority, tapping more dedicated money to fix the deficit. If you believe that they should have the authority to do a 5% over to fix a deficit, then you can vote for it. If you do not think that, you leave it like it is. However, we know that there are many things that come up. And unfortunately, we've had so many storms that we're in a recovery mode, but we will build back better. These amendments are very, very intense in what they are moving, because most of them are around fiscal reform, which is always positive if it is done correctly. So I just encourage you to take the information from the PAR, read it thoroughly, and if you have any particular questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll be happy to get back with you and expound upon it. Last slide. We're in election. Just remind everybody you know that the election has been moved to October 13th. Early voting is October 30th through November 6th, with the exception of October 31st, Halloween, that's a Sunday. You can still register to vote. It's important that we register, but it's most important that when we register that we go and vote. We get so many people to register, but they don't turn out and vote. The percentage of voters turnout in Louisiana is critically low. So we need to move the needle to ensure the folks that are registered get to the poll. If you're 65 or older, request your mail-in ballot. So we need to move the needle to ensure the folks that are registered get to the poll. If you're 65 or older, request your mail-in ballot. So we need to move the needle to ensure the folks that are registered get to the poll. If you're 65 or older. I'm not sure what's happening there. I got a lot of feedback. Did you all hear what I was saying? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I said, if you're 65 or older, you certainly need to request a mail-in ballot, and you need to do that ASAP. because there will be winter storms, there will be rain, there will be a lot of things that will deter you from going to the poll. That's your procedure safeguard. Get it. If you have a disability, you're eligible. Get it, research it. There is a link in your chat where you can go in and check immediately the status of your voter registration card. If it says it's inactive, you can't vote. So you need to do something with your voter register office to make sure that you're eligible to vote. There's also a site in there if you need to change your address or if you need to register someone. Anybody who is 18 years of age should be registered. But in Louisiana, you can register at 17. You're just not eligible to vote until your 18th birthday. So get these high school students, all of our youth programs that we sponsor, debutante balls, things, get these young folk registered. And when they register, mobilize them to the poll. It's important. And if we don't vote, we really don't have a voice. Again, I want to thank you to Baton Rouge Sigma chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, to your gracious president, Sarah Joseph Franklin, for allowing me to be your speaker this morning. And again, hugs, kisses, and love to your chair, Dr. Lewis, and your co-chair, Judy. And to all who are in attendance today, I hope what I shared has amplified your voice and has moved you to an action of growth mindset, not fixed. God bless you. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. You all please stay with us. We will have remarks from Tracy Woods and then from Dr. Lewis.
Oh, good morning, good Saras. I just want to thank our speaker for getting us motivated to have a growth mentality. And now we have been called to action. Now we need to go and establish our plans to have a major impact on Louisiana's redistricting plan. We also need to be ready to have a major impact on the nation's redistricting plan. Saras, she has provided us with the roadmap. Now we need to go get in some good trouble. So today, take this information, make sure you go back to your chapters, your friends, your family, and to make sure everything works well. Now, I will also ask that all of the Saras of Baton Rouge Sigma and any other Saras on place, please complete the survey that should be in the chat box. And I want to thank you again, Sarah, for making and motivating us this morning. Love and kisses to everyone.
Sarah, before we dismiss, I have one question. It was buried in the links. And it's if Sarah Proby Bryant could please repeat the title of Bill H.
The bill is HR 1 for the people, and it's in the United States Congress right now. It has been passed, and it is in the Senate, who is holding it up. But it's simply called HR 1 for the People Act.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I put that response in the chat for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah Lewis.
I think that those are all the questions I want to echo what Tracy said. A great big shout out to Sarah Bryant for the information that she shared with us today. And hopefully it will propel us to go into our communities to make a difference. Always remember, social action is what we do. I'm going to challenge each and every one of you on the call to join us on Tuesday, November 16th at Southern University for the roadshow that will be held in the Cotillion Ballroom at Southern University. We want you to show up and show out in your red, in your letters, because that is what I'm hearing, that the greatest need is for the shows is for us to show up. And if you have any questions beyond today about the roadshow, please contact Sarah Merrick, Robin Merrick. We want to recognize a few persons among us on the call. Sarah Bryan, you'll be pleased to know that we have the Honorable Judge Yvette Alexander with us this morning. We also have a number of special sorors who joined us from other chapters. We also want to recognize all of our attendees from the community. Thank you for being a part of this webinar. We have a tremendous leadership team with Shai Franklin, Ernice Singleton, and Robin Bettis. Always on time, always supporting us. And know that we have challenged our Social Action Committee this year to own their committee. This morning, they owned their committee. Many of them are on this call, and for that, we are truly grateful. Can't say enough about Judy Bethley and Tracy Woods, always stepping up to ensure that social action is what we do. So in going forward, we want to always remember that the National Social Action Commission has challenged us to each and every day, register a voter. And don't just register the voter, get them to the polls to vote. Redistricting is a hot topic, sorors. We have got to pay attention to what's going on with the redrawing of maps to ensure that the community that you live in is not impacted by some gerrymandering or some other sneaky way of splitting our votes. Let's make sure that redistricting remains high on our list. This is all of the information that I needed to share. Don't forget, as Tracy said, to complete the evaluation for this webinar. Take away all that Sarah Bryan shared with us and go out into your communities and make a difference. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Sarah Lewis, I just wanted to highlight that Judge Sarah Janice Clark is also on the call. So you may want to recognize her as well.
Oh, wow. All right, we also want to recognize the Honorable Janice Clark, and we thank her as well for joining this call. And Saras, lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't do something. You need to know this. You need to know that today is a special day for Sarah Tracy Woods. Today is her birthday. Happy birthday, Tracy Woods.
Sarah Lewis.
Thank you,
Yes.
Sarah.
You're welcome.
May I have just a point, and if it's okay with your Madam President, my Madam President is on the call also, Sarah Sharon
Please do.
D. Penson, who represents the Shreveport Alumni Chapter Exemplary. Sarah Penson, would you quickly share?
Hello, Saras, and I'm sorry that my camera is off. We just had a yoga experience with my chapter, so and it was fabulous, and I jumped right on here, so I'm still in my yoga attire. Sarah Giselle Bryan, as always, you make us proud. Fabulous presentation. Thank you so much for inviting her to spread this great information. And it looks like you guys had a great showing. So great webinar. Thank you so much.
Well, I would
All right, and
assume
thank
with
you,
that,
Sarah
we're
Penson,
going to
for
close it out.
joining.
Please, let's not leave without thanking technology. Thank you so much, technology team, for keeping us going.
Hello, Jean Ware. This is Bernie's card. I was a classmate of Mildred.
Yes, hello.
How are you?
Oh,
I'm well, thank you.
Good.
all right, Saras, we're going to officially disconnect our live, and if anyone wants to stay on afterwards just to say hi and chat. But yes, as ladies of Delta Sigma Theta and a lot of ladies and gentlemen around, we do multitask. So we want to continue to take this out in the manner that it needs to be and have a great rest of your day. Goodbye, everyone.
Hi, Shreveport, Saras. Great job.
Hi, Sarah
Giselle.
Walker Mitchell. We love